What was missing? If we're looking ahead for 2024, well, the picture there on my screen, that's a picture of a big stone lodge, the Big Stone Lodge. Remember, we were hearing all the stories about the Big Stone Lodge. They were going to tear it down, and then they were going to put affordable housing there. But then it was in a floodplain. And then Chris Cruz and some of her followers are saying, no, we need to make it a passive park with shade and trails, and that way, if it's in a flood zone, it's not a big deal. Other people have said we need to rebuild it, and preserve Poway's history. Other people said, well, you can tear it down, but you should put up like a plaque or a monument or something commemorating it, because it's a huge part of Poway history. Well, it's true, but why are we not hearing anything about the Big Stone Lodge anymore? And last time I was there, which was a few years ago, it was still big chain link fence around it. There were rats. There were holes in the roof. It makes me wonder what they're going to do there. I should kind of go down Old Pomerado Road and poke my nose in and see. What else was missing for 2024? No talk about Poway Road development. Very little talk about what we can anticipate with the completion of the development of the farm. I mean, McNamara says that'll be the first phase of it will be done really in the fall of 2024. I'm surprised there was no mention of that by city officials on what they were looking forward to in 2024 and the outlook for Poway. What else? How about the outpost? That's the big hole in the ground right next to Five Guys, right next to the mortuary on Poway Road. Now, granted, it's private property, and apparently the owner of that land is going through bankruptcy, and they're having their sets of challenges. And what can the city council do? Probably not a lot, because someone needs to buy the land and then decide what they want to do with the property. But I'm just surprised that it wasn't on the list of, a plan. It was some kind of thing that they were hopeful that could be resolved in 2024. So it doesn't become this piece of property that's sort of in limbo, that's in like this state of, construction with the pause button. I'm kind of curious to see what they decide to do with that. Oh, this is actually, just got another live stream comment here from our good friend Yuri Bolin. He says, just joined in. Not sure if it's been discussed, but what's your opinion of toilet to tap in California? Well, I already commented on it. I'm a big supporter of toilet to tap. That's the water recycling, and it sounds awful on its face. But I remember John Mullen, former city council member, was here in my podcast studio back in 2018. He sat on the board that oversees the Pure Water Initiative. The water that's coming out of the toilet to tap is cleaner. It is safer. It is more pure than the water that we're already getting from the Colorado River. That's how good the technology is. And it's significantly less expensive to recycle that water than it is to manufacture clean water out of salt water. The desalinization, that's an expensive process. This Pure Water Initiative is a lot cheaper. So I'm a big supporter of that. And like I said, I'm hopeful that some of that finds its way into Poway. Okay, what else was missing in 2024? I remember I said the housing development. And by the way, did you notice that when it comes to development, I told you this is definitely the number one story in Poway. As far as what people are hot and bothered about, whether you're against development, you're against developers, or you're against traffic, or you're just against change, or whether you don't want more people moving in, or whatever it is, there's a lot of different people that are objecting, or you have a problem with the way the city council is conducting the business. And, the money in politics and all of that, where developers are contributing to campaign funds for some of these city council members, or to go against their opposition. Different people in different categories are upset about the development. It's not just Chris Cruz and some of the progressives and the South Poway folks that are upset about it, but there are people in North Poway and people in other parts of the community, of people that are right wing and left wing and somewhere in the middle, and people of different communities in Poway, and they've coalesced, and There's this new Poway group called Poway Voices, if you've seen it on Facebook. And it seems to be, Chris Cruz's South North Poway Votes group, plus a lot of other people that are just focused on these development issues, people that have been objecting to the Lifetime Fitness project, people that have been objecting to the farm, people that were objecting to Poway Commons and the Fairfield project. And then we've got that new project that's coming up. What's that one called? The Harmon Ranch, which is going to be off of Oak Knoll. So a lot of anti-development people are coming together in that Poway Voices community, trying to get their voice heard. How is that not, part of like big things to think about with 2024 is development is by far the biggest issue on most people's minds. What else is not in that list? Like I alluded to, money in politics. Now, granted, the writer of this article, and her name is Julie Gallant. She interviewed the mayor and various city council members here in Poway. They're not going to say this, but I will, is the money in politics. That's a big deal. And it's only gotten worse. It's become a bigger problem in Poway. As there's been more development, there's been a lot more money flowing into like a local city council race, like in a little district of a collection of neighborhoods. Some of these candidates are getting tens of thousands of dollars that are either going to their campaign or are going to PACs, political action committees that either support their efforts or want to take down or criticize their competitors. Excuse me. That's a huge issue. Now, I don't think there's anyone that thinks that's a good idea of having all this corporate dollars flowing into campaigns, essentially distorting messages or trying to tip the playing field. People in general are not, it doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right or however you align politically. Most people don't want big money in politics because they know it leads to corruption and it leads to a lot of other negative outcomes. In my opinion, the reason that there's so much money in politics is because the politicians have so much control over the local economy, in particular over housing. And as a result, these developers are paying money to help out campaigns directly or indirectly, which in turn is used to influence the decisions that the local government officials are making about land and about the way the economy is regulated locally. Like I said before, the city government, local government should be fire, police, in this case, for Poway's case, ambulance, sewage, water, roads, parks, and that's kind of it. Not much more than that. But when you have city officials that are so tightly integrated into how all this housing is going on and approving this or disapproving that, then of course there's going to be money flowing in to try to influence the process. But that wasn't mentioned at all either. The other thing for 2024 that wasn't mentioned, there's two others on my list. One was town halls. And I remember hearing candidates talking about that. And in fact, if I recall, some of the candidates that won might have talked about town halls and more communication. I think that'd be great. You go to the city council and you want to speak, you get 3 minutes, in some cases only 2 minutes. And it's kind of, you say your piece and it sort of goes out into the ether. There's no response. There's no follow-up. There's no accountability. And there's not a kind of an open conversation. Even you watch these presidential town halls that are going on right now, you see them on CNN. Candidates are being asked questions, and then the candidates respond to those questions with, you may like or dislike their answers, but they are responding. When you go to City Hall and go before public comments, a lot of times they can't say much. They can't really comment on the public comments. We need more of that. We need more of that town hall thing. It was mentioned in the political campaigns in 2022. I don't recall seeing it. I know for sure a lot of the candidates that lost wanted the town halls, but I think some of the candidates that won were also proponents of that. In my opinion, that's just transparency in government. We should have that regardless. And the last thing, it's on my list. But it's this whole Poway identity crisis issue. Is Poway really a city in the country? Is it a city? Is it a suburban city? Is it rural? Is it the country? Or is that like a feel good, slogan from days long ago when we had a hitching post and we had um, a wagon stop at the Big Stone Lodge? I mean, people have a connection with our local history, and I get it. Our history's cool. It's a really interesting history here in Poway. But is it still a city in the country? It seems like we cling to that motto and then get angry when it doesn't live up to the motto. But it hasn't been living up to that motto the Poway Rodeo was standing, hasn't been living up to that motto for like 30 years. Makes you wonder. I mean, what else? So what else have these city officials left out as some of their top priorities for 2024? Let me know.